This is Chaos's trailer, and this is Chaos, or better known as We Roam World, or Chris's adventure-ready Subaru Forester. And well, I have the keys for the next 60 days. But it's not going to be sitting here at Flat 4 Off-Road for long. We have a ton of modifications to do to get it ready for Chris's next epic adventure. That means taking what I've learned from my Subaru Forester back there and helping Chris dial in his Forester even a little bit more. But before we go ahead and, well, start these modifications, I want to get a baseline of what Chaos feels like so that we know our modifications on Chaos actually go about improving the adventure-ready capabilities of this. So let's go ahead and take it for a drive. And I think there's no better place than to take Chaos out into the Alberta wilderness and get a better feeling for what the baseline looks like. On the highway heading west, I'm actually surprised how easy it is to just cruise at the speed limit. As you know, on my Forester, it doesn't quite do that. The Forester, because it's naturally aspirated, isn't as happy. But here with the turbocharged engine, it's just happy as can be, cruising at 110, no problem. I'm honestly quite impressed. It makes road trips probably in this a lot of fun. And on the road, it does feel quite stiff. It feels almost like the STI, like performance suspension, which is great for handling. This has no sway bars, and honestly, it drives better than a lot of lifted vehicles, even when they do have sway bars. Well, Chris was over at Flat 4 Off-Road building the trailer for Chaos. We did talk about some of the upgrades that we wanted to do to better prepare him for his next adventure. But there is also some things that we don't know exactly what we need to do or what we want to do yet until we get a little bit of a baseline. And that's kind of exactly what we're looking at doing today. We're driving it a little bit out here in the Alberta prairies into the wilderness a little bit before we hit some gravel roads, and not really any tight technical trails, just a little bit of rough terrain to see how it performs there. And then that way we can get a baseline. So once we do all these modifications, we can see how well it actually improved, well, the overall ride quality and just the ability to take it on rough roads and different adventures. Another thing I'm noticing is the HVAC is very particular. It seems to only kick on half the time. And Chris mentioned this, and he also mentioned change a bunch of components on there. So it looks like we'll be fighting electrical issues on here. And talking about electrical, we do have a check engine light. It isn't a boosted Subaru without a check engine light. That said, we're fairly confident what it is. We are running some baseline tests on here, getting some readings so that we can go ahead and see what we're looking at. Because it is a bank 1 to lean, it could be the map, it could be a vacuum leak. So looking at stuff like our fuel trim, looking at stuff like our airflow, on our MAF, we can kind of get a better idea of what we need to do. But those will be things that we can work on as we're working on the bigger stuff. And then something that I haven't really noticed out here so much, but when we were getting out of the city, was that the brakes are definitely in need of some work. They're a little bit slippery, but they almost feel like they're glazed over a little bit. But the worst thing is, I'm finding just about to stop, the ABS kind of kicks on and you can hear it kick on, which is very strange. So that will be part of our brake upgrade, is going ahead and fixing that as well. And with that all said, though, it is a ton of fun to drive. Shout out to Chris, We Roam World, for, well, allowing me this opportunity to work on this car and, well, drive this and get a little bit of a baseline, because it is a ton of fun. It's like my Forester, but a lot more aggressive in, well, just the capabilities, because you can go ahead, it's boosted, so it actually picks up the pace well. It's got the cool dual range, which I've never had the opportunity to drive, which is actually really cool. And it's also on that much more aggressive suspension, which allows us to, well, drive it a little bit harder. That said, we will get these in tune for more for an adventure vehicle because, as I said, aggressive on the road, but maybe a little bit too aggressive for the dirt. Now on the gravel roads, I can definitely see what Chris is talking about with it being very, very rough. It absorbs like sudden impacts, but it doesn't really float over it as you would expect with off-road coilovers. And as I said, that's really the valving that is the challenge there. So that is something we're definitely going to be addressing. Although this low range box, all the Subarus are known not to have the best low range, but the low range on this is actually makes it a ton of fun for on these gravel roads and stuff. And I think that was a pretty good baseline. And honestly, I might have to go build myself a turboed Subaru for, well, gravel roads like these. It was a ton of fun. Once you hit boost, you were kind of able to play around on these roads a little bit more with my Forester, with all the weight, the naturally aspirated. It just doesn't feel as much fun on these roads. But that said, even though I would say it's built pretty well, I gotta say, shout out to Chris for building this thing. I know it's done some amazing trips through Europe as well as the Western United States. There is a few upgrades that we're gonna make it even better for the next adventure. So as I mentioned, on the road and on the gravel, we have a couple things that both me and Chris have mentioned, and those are gonna be what we're addressing, well, in this video and in the series, or I guess, of the last couple episodes that we'll be working on this car. So you'll be seeing this car for a little bit. As I mentioned, Chris is coming to pick it up here in a couple of months. So we have some time to make these upgrades and we'll obviously film some videos for you guys. I think there'll be some interesting content that won't be something that I would do with my Forester, but with something I would do with this. So we're gonna go ahead and do those all in a little bit. But first, let's talk about exactly what we're thinking. And the first and most important one, as I mentioned, is the suspension. I'm also just noticing that there is no bolt on this bracket holding the brake line. So that's another thing we'll have to address, but we'll be talking about brakes here in a second. So what is going on here is these are flat out GR40s. They're essentially an upgraded version of what I have in my car, the GR Lights. These have an inverted shock. They have a little bit more of adjustability, and well, they're gonna be a lot stronger because this car, whether you believe it or not, has a 6-inch lift. I know people are always like 2 inches max on Subaru. Chris has done a good job with doing subframe drops throughout this whole thing so that it has essentially a 6-inch lift. So as you can tell, there's quite a bit of room in here. And that's why we went with these coilovers, because at that length, you are gonna need something that is a little bit stronger. The GR Lights just can't go that far. So with the inverted shocks, it allows us, and I would have to check the numbers, but I believe there's 12 inches of travel in the rear, if not more, and 14 in the rear. So that is quite a bit. And well, normal shocks can't really handle that. So that's why it's got the GR40s. That said, they do need some adjustments. So the first thing, Chris, you might have seen, moved a lot of stuff to a trailer. That's removing a lot of weight on this car itself. That means that these springs, just looking at these right now, are gonna be way over spec'd for how light this car is now. So it's gonna need new springs. The second thing is flat out suspension is actually gonna be updating the valving in this for a little bit different of a ride. That's the cool thing about coilovers. You can dial it in to exactly what you're looking for and exactly kind of the ride quality. As I said, these ride really, really nice on the road, super aggressive. But terrain like this, the rough washboards, it just doesn't perform as well. Chris has actually aired these down a little bit, so it's not as rough on these kind of roads and runs it pretty much the whole time. So that is the main thing we're gonna be addressing, but not all of it. And there's another thing that revolves around the wheels. Not the wheels themselves, it's the brakes. As we said, the brakes feel like they're almost glazed over a little bit, and it, well, is a challenge when you're driving on difficult situations where you need as much braking as possible, especially when Chris had this loaded up. I do not know how he drove it, but it's gonna get some new brakes. I do have some ideas, if you've watched the channel and heard about what I want to do with the Forester, my personal Forester, then it might give you a clue of what we want to do on Chaos. That said, we're going to have to work through a few things to try to figure out what works best, but we do have some plans to possibly put the 2-pot, 4-pot brakes in from the 06 era of the WRX. Gives us a lot more braking power, and well, honestly, with some stainless steel lines and new fluid, the brakes will be performing better than they ever have. And those are the two really big things that we have planned for Chaos in the next couple of months. As I said, there is a few more maintenance items that we're going to quickly run through, and we'll just take a look at this car because this car is amazing, and I feel like it definitely requires a full comparison video versus my Subaru Forester, but let me know down in the comments if you want to see that. With that said, we're going to take a quick look here just so you guys see what we're working with at the start, and then we'll do another look at this car once it's been all modified and set up for its next adventure to see what we have changed. So one of the things we have back here is a really cool platform. Down here, this car actually can run on propane. That said, it's not running on propane right now because European and North American propane is a little bit different. So Chris has opted to just run it on fuel, but there is a tank down here as well as a really cool battery setup that is hiding back here with red arc inverter, fuses, an air compressor, and so forth. Then we have, of course, a fridge and then a pullout for a bunch of gear, as well as another molly rack on this side. You'll also notice everything on this car is tan. Chris has a tan exterior with Raptor liner and a tan interior, which is super rare and I haven't seen a lot of it. So it's really cool. I honestly wasn't a huge fan of tan interiors, but this on Chaos worked really well. And then when we shut this, we'll go ahead, take a look. It does have a fully functional ladder, like this thing is bolted on here, as well as a spare on the rear hatch, and it functions. There's upgraded struts in the hatch, so it all works out really well. And of course, a tow hitch for the trailer, which you'll probably see sometime in the channel. And then as we come around back, we have these molly panels that I actually have on my Forester. Wonder where I got them from? No, from AVOR. We actually carry all their stuff at Flat Forest Road. So if you are wanting to build an adventure Subaru like this and you like stuff like this roof rack or these panels, let us know at Flat Forest Road and we can definitely get them in for you. But talking about the roof rack and panels, we have a water tank on this side, a fuel tank on that side, and this really cool roof rack that actually went into the factory crossbar mounts, or I guess the roof rails. So it mounts into there, and then you have a fully extruded aluminum roof rack. And then Chris added a little extension here for his light bar. And well, as I said, still got the full interior. It's got a cool couple European special things, such as the middle dash that's kind of elevated and stuff like that. But the really cool things, as I said, are all the modifications on this car. And then coming from the custom built roof rack with solar panels on it, it's got these. And I'm actually super jealous of these. These are sliders that are built into the unibody of the car. Like, it protects the whole underside here and can take some pretty hard hits. Because as you guys know, when we wheel my Subaru, I've definitely taken out that rocker a little bit. And it's got a little bit of a step here so you can go ahead and get on there. And while we're down here, let's talk about the wheels and tires. So it's got Hankook ATs. They're the AT2 Extremes. Chris really likes them. I haven't personally tested them yet, so I don't know how well they perform, but Chris has absolutely loved them, so they're really good here on Chaos. And then it's got some, I believe, Audi Pepper Pot, similar but European special magnesium wheels, I believe they are super light. And honestly, they look super good on this car. They kind of look like an upgraded Steely, but they're way lighter than a Steely. And then up here in the front, of course, we gotta have a full bumper with a winch behind the plate, which is just super slick. And then we have, obviously, some lights. These are routed into the high beam. And then Chris has actually got the switch panel on the A-pillar. So all the lights, like our chase and flashing lights up front, those are all triggered by nice little switches on the pillar, as well as the roof rack lights that go both off the side so you get directional light. Again, something I want to do in my car. May or may not have been inspired by Chris's build. And with that said, we also have a snorkel. It's actually a little bit different of a snorkel build than most people do on these, but I think it almost works better than everything else, and it looks like it was built for the car. Obviously with these cars, there is no purpose-built snorkel, so we have to make do with what we have, and I think that one worked really well. And then finally, here in the engine bay, it's got the 2-liter, not the 2.5 because it's a European car. So it's got essentially a JDM or a European WRX engine, and honestly, makes it a ton of fun. And then of course, you can't forget all the little upgrades such as the projector beam housings, the WRX seats, and the list goes on and on. If you want to see more of the complete build, definitely check out We Roam World on YouTube or Instagram. And Chris has got everything posted on there. I also got Chris tagged in all of these videos because, again, I'm super grateful for Chris allowing me to, work on Chaos. I've been following Chaos since the beginning, so it's super cool to see something like that kind of connect us across the world with Subaru Foresters. So we do have, as I said, a lot of things to do. On top of all the little maintenance items, like I said, we got some axle boots as well that boots have cracked. We're going to be doing something with those, so we're going to be upgrading that. And then we got stuff like the HVAC that is causing issues and just small little things here and there. So we're going to see it a lot on the channel. Maybe we'll do some Sunday live streams. We'll obviously do some videos with the coilovers and stuff. So you're just going to have to go ahead and stay tuned for that. But that is where we're going to wrap up today's video. So I hope you enjoyed this little bit deeper dive into, Chaos and what we have planned for it. I'm really excited for it, and again, I can't thank Chris enough. If you're new here, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this Forester. As I said, I think it's a really cool build, but I'd love to hear other people's thoughts. And while you're down there, don't forget to go ahead and we'll check out Flat 4 Off-Road for your adventure Subaru needs, especially here in Canada, where we can get adventure van conversion stuff for your Forester, as well as a ton of other stuff. And with that said, don't forget to go ahead and check out the channel memberships for exclusive perks and, helping me create content like this. And, I'll be seeing you guys in the next adventure.